you're just joining us, this is the POLITY, and my name is Maucauley Hunohashi. We're taking a look at the resurgence of suicide bombing and how to mitigate this unfortunate resurgence. And joining me in the studio is no other person than Mr. John Okoro. John Okoro is a media personality. John, you're welcome to the POLITY.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Now, let's begin this conversation by asking you, just when we thought that we have put the suicide bombing behind us, in the myriad challenges of our security that we have seen a resurgence of suicide bombing, and it came up with an alarming dimension, and many people describe it as horrific. What's your view on that?
Yeah, it was very horrific. Very, very horrific. You are talking about 30 all-female suicide bombers. 30 of them, about that. Just descending on Boza, that particular fateful Saturday, targeting wedding ceremonies and other areas. And before you know it, fatalities all over the place. And who would have expected that? That at the time, in fact, according to reports, one of the female suicide bombers actually had a baby strapped, behind. Who would have thought that such a person who had a baby strapped behind her would have been a suicide bomber? And she actually detonated her bomb and died and killed a lot of people, including an army officer and a member of the civilian JTF and so many others. So who would have believed it? That at a time like this, when we thought that we have at least gone past the level of suicide bombing, that we have this resurging again. You also know that Goza was actually the headquarters of operation of the Boko Haram. You remember when they hosted their flag, the Caliphate flag? It was right there in Goza that happened. And all the efforts that have been put in place by the military, to stamp out this ugly insurgency in the land. For me, I will not say that it has come to naught because of this. I will not say that. We must give it to the military. Time wars in this country, I'm talking about 2011, 2012, when it was like almost a daily occurrence of suicide bombing, not just in the Northeast, not just in BORNO State or in Adamawa State or in Yobe State. We experienced suicide bombing in Kano. We experienced suicide bombing in Abuja here. We experienced suicide bombing in Kaduna and some other places in the country. So you could see that as of today, there is a lot of a kind of relative calm in the system in terms of insurgency. But that does not mean that because with what happened on Saturday, it is a reminder that it is not yet whole in terms of the fight against terrorism or insurgency in Nigeria. Now,
the military has sustained an onslaught, very, very unrelenting, against the Boko Haram insurgents. And the onslaught has always been in the battlefield. They face one another, or they face the insurgents on the battlefield. But now we have seen some sort of resurgence of suicide bombing that used to be a spectacle in this country. Would you attribute that to some lawlessness or some complacency on the part of citizens?
Well, yeah, when a particular thing, an incident or an event or a kind of occurrence, lingers for a long time, there will be a kind of fatigue. I remember vividly, even here in Abuja, then, when the issue of bombing was all over the place, that, everyone then was cautious. When you go to a public place, when you enter a public vehicle, you are very cautious about who knows whether any person inside this vehicle could be a suicide bomber in Abuja here then. But after a while, when the whole thing began to go down and we did not hear, and everywhere became quiet, no more bombs going off here and there, it's like this fatigue, just came in. You understand, within the citizenry. That is why, nobody really bothered again, because as far as we're concerned, and based on assurances from government, it seemed like it was all over for suicide bombing. Because when you talk about suicide bomb, you're talking about people who are willing to sacrifice themselves. So it was like maybe all the efforts being put by the military, both in terms of kinetic and mostly especially non-kinetic approach towards de-radicalization, that maybe it actually paid off to a point. That may have been the thought of many people, especially those in the Northeast, who have been at the center, the epicenter of these things. So for about 30 suicide bombers to come into a town and then actually carried out the operation, even to the point of being successful.
Then what do we tell about our vulnerability as a nation? It is
huge. The fact remains that despite the level and the volume of insecurity in the country, there's still a lot of complacency within, our security consciousness. Because anyone could actually walk into anywhere today in this country. Yes, anyone could walk. Because we go along the road. Even when we see the military checkpoints, who are not just the military, but the police, the checkpoints around, the way they just come and you stop, they just look and then you say, okay, pass. That's it. So sometimes you wonder, okay, if this person that you've allowed to pass, especially at night, is actually carrying something that is dangerous, how will you know? You understand? Even in public buildings, in public places, even in government places, you see how people move in and out freely. So you wonder what has happened. But I know that when the issue of insurgency was at its height, that there was this heightened sense of security, in the country. But it's no more there, because we feel that we have actually gone past the level. And, like I mentioned earlier, there has been a lot of assurances from government, even from the defense and the security agencies, that that at least Nigerian people now, and that is what we want to say, I will believe it. However, there's still these subtle reminders, like what happened in Goza on Saturday, that it is not yet over. That we see, because we're talking about asymmetrical warfare. These people that we fight, they are not the conventional army.
They are not.
They are not even a guerrilla army. These people, this is asymmetrical. And, they operate in shadows. Do you know that just 2, 3, or 4 individuals could actually enter into a city of 1 million people and wreak havoc because of the asymmetrical nature of their operation? So I think it is incumbent on us as citizens, because it's not just about the police, nor is it about the military. It's about the citizens. Anything that has to do with security is the responsibility of everyone, because, like in many instances when there's a crime, the security agencies are not there. It is the people who were or are eyewitnesses that will now inform the security agencies that this is what happened. That it is based on these physical eyewitness accounts that the agencies would now use to carry out their investigations. In many instances, like you talk about 911, why do you have to have 911? The police is not there now. There's a crime. What is 911? What is your complaint? What is your emergency? They're asking you what is going. You're the one that will report. Okay, there is an incident here and here. Before you know it, they arrive and then they start the investigation and they get the root of the crime. So the citizenry must also be very, very, very vigilant.
Well, this bomb blast was well coordinated, so to speak, according to reports, and the perpetrators use IEDs, improvised explosive devices. How easily accessible can local people have access to IEDs? We're talking about intelligence now. Why is it that it is easy to beat intelligence in a country like Nigeria, to assemble IEDs and even use them? Because they travel through communities and they go to markets. These IEDs are not gotten from the bushes. They get them from stores within civilized environments. What does it tell about what does it say about our intelligence community?
The fact remains that despite the fact that we know that we have the gap in intelligence, especially the non-use of technology in gathering intelligence, as it is practiced in many parts of the world today, you also know that based on manpower and based on territory and based on terrain, it is not going to be possible for the security agencies or even the intelligence community to really monitor everything that happens around in the system. And the people who are also the perpetrators of this crime, they are prepared. They are ready, ever ready. And they have a pool of recruits who are indoctrinated, and they are ever ready to come out and sacrifice themselves. So the issue, there is a black market. We all understand what it is, both in terms of illegal arms, in terms of these materials to produce IEDs and other kind of bombs or explosives. The black market is thriving. It is thriving, and it is left for the intelligence community to really go to the root to get these things sorted out. But I don't believe, I have to be frank with you here, that there will be a total complete eradication of some of these actions. But it is the ability to curb it to the barest minimum that will make a difference. Because no matter how you try, even as we speak today, beyond the issue of insurgency in the Northeast, we also have other elements of criminality across the country. Now, how do these small arms, even heavy arms, how do they come into the possession of these people? How do they get it? It's simply because of the thriving billion-dollar trade in illegal arms across both the Sahel, across other parts of the world. So despite everything, even despite collaboration with a lot of other international agencies to curb the illegal trade, the proliferation of small arms, not just only in the Sahel and West Africa and the rest of it, but across the world generally. Because if you look around the world, there are a lot of conflicts in many places. Even in Africa here, some of them have been raging for a long time. Today we're talking about, like in Sudan, you have the conflicts between what is supposed to be the government army and the rebel, the RSF, the Rapid Support, group, and the rest of them, the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF that you mentioned, and elsewhere in Africa. If you go to East Africa, as we speak today, within the area of the eastern section of the Democratic Republic of Congo, bordering Rwanda, there has been an ongoing conflict there. How did these people get their arms? If you go even at the time in the Horn of Africa, in the area around Somalia, South Sudan, and Eritrea, there had been conflicts. How did these people get it? So it is even as we speak now, within the Sahel, you still have in the West African countries, like in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and some of these places, there has been the problem of insurgency also happening every day. You hear about people being killed. These people, they come in, and in Mali now, the French forces came in to dislodge the insurgency in northern Mali. This is as if even with the incursion of the military into the polity of some of these countries in West Africa, yes, they are still fighting this insurgency. How are these people sustained? They are sustained because of the illegal trade, in weapons across the world. So long as conflicts persist, yes, there will be the arms deals is going to continue to be exactly. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. Now, in spite of African Union's authorizing a multinational joint task force to combat insurgency in the Northeast, Boko Haram, which started in 2009, has been there for the past 15 years, and over 35,000 people have lost their lives, on record. Now, many people attribute it to ideological reasons. Some say it's criminality, while others believe that some of them are under the influence of alcohol. And what do you think is fueling this, insurgency in the Northeast? It's a mix, and all the things you mentioned: drug, criminality, then ideology. They are all combined to make up this insurgency in the northeast of Nigeria. And like I also said, if you go and trace the history of Boko Haram as it started, at least around 2009, it didn't just start in 2009. It's been there. At least Mohammed Yusuf was a well-known personality within the Borno and the Maiduguri axis, even long before 2009. when at least they came out. I know that something led to something. It was a local problem between the government and he himself. I mean, I'm talking about Mohammed Yusuf. That actually led to his members, the Yusufia members, coming out, to air their grievances, and then the government now came and then clamped down then as it was normal. And then what now happened? Yusuf was now killed. Was it not what happened? Yes. He was killed. Yeah. And the circumstances that led to his death was so controversial that even at the time when the insurgency began, I could even, once in a while, you could hear some of them speaking through some media that all they wanted was for their mosques and other places that were destroyed during that first insurgency, that those things should be reviewed for them. If that was done, even at the time, the government, and they also talked about the extrajudicial killing of the leader.
Of their leader, yeah.
You understand that? And at the time, government even set up, and what I call it, a kind of an inquiry to unravel the circumstances behind the alleged extrajudicial killing of Mohammed Yusuf. I'm just talking about the beginning. Then years down the line, here we are today. The thing has evolved, into different things. You hear about the Shekau, you hear about the Al-Banawi, you hear about ISWAP. All these things all came out to haunt our country. And they're all linked. Everything is still there. Talking about insurgency, because even while the ideology fight was going on in the name of insurgency, there were also criminal acts. Yeah. Talking about abductions, talking about raidings. At the time, they even started raiding banks. They raided homes, they raided markets to have access to fund. They raided banks looking for money. They raided schools, abducting females, girls, like in Chibok, Dapchi, for reasons other than what? Criminality. So everything is mixed together. So whatever it is, and it's difficult, because as you are trying to exterminate the physical fighters, the ideology remains. And there are hundreds of people who are ready to take up arms again to continue with that ideology. And within that same threshold, you have criminality, you have drug abuse, because they're talking about what now pushes you, what now gives you, that power to go out there and carry suicide bombing. Is it normal? Those people who are going to carry out suicide bombing, they must have been laced up with psychotropic drugs to make them immune and numb from the realities of what they are going to do and whatever happens after that.
Okay, give me a peep into the mind of a suicide bomber from the ideological point of view. It
is difficult to really understand.
Okay, let's talk about de-radicalized. Over 300,000 have been de-radicalized.
Yes.
What would you say? Does the Nigerian military have that capacity to de-radicalize someone that has ideological radicalization?
Yes, I think the army, actually assured us, and they began the exercise. They built up centers where some people, because we must also understand that not everyone who joins insurgency is actually someone who joined it because of his or her ideological belief.
Okay.
Some were compelled to join. I remember at the time they actually had to use force to actually compel people to actually join, and even suicide bombers were, in fact, at the time they had to compel people through their parents. They will hold somebody's parents hostage and say, if you as a child won't go to carry out suicide bombing, then they will kill the parents or deal with the parents. So you see, they use compulsion. They also lured people with money. There was a time when even we heard about websites that existed for those who wanted to join insurgency, and if you surfed through the web, you could actually access them, and then you see the cost, how much you are paid per month. So some people actually joined because they wanted to get money out of it. So you understand. So when you want to de-radicalize, you must put all these factors in perspective.
Okay, John. On this note, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue with the conversation. We're taking a look at the horrific suicide bomb blast that occurred on Saturday in Goza, Borno State, northeast Nigeria. Our telephone line will be displayed on your screen so that you can call to participate and make the program conversational. That will be after the break. Please stay with us. You're welcome back, and this is the POLITY. We're taking a look at the horrific bomb blast, suicide bomb blast that occurred on Saturday in Goza, where 18 people were said to have died and over 30 people are receiving treatments, from various degrees of injuries in that bomb blast that occurred. And well, still with me in the studio is John Okoro, and we are here. The president has condemned it. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has condemned it. Has said there's got to be stern, justice against perpetrators. What do you think?
Yeah, presidential or executive condemnation is perfunctory. It's something that will naturally happen. And it's not new per se, because at least we have seen about 4 presidents, including the current president, all of them, managing insurgency from the late President Yar'Adua to President Jonathan to President Buhari, and now President Tinubu. They have all, gone through this same process. Okay.
We have a caller. Hello, good afternoon. This is the POLITY. We have lost it. Go ahead on that.
Yes. So I say it's normal, it's regular, it's normal, because definitely you don't expect the president to keep quiet when a thing like this happens. So there must be, the president has to say something.
Okay. The caller has called back. Hello, good afternoon. You're welcome to the POLITY.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
I'm Idris calling from KAFTAN.
Okay, Idris, your contribution, please.
Yes, we really appreciate this program.
Thank you, Idris.
With the colleague there who is really analyzing the situation.
Okay.
The issue of this crisis in the north has to do with lack of political will.
Okay.
If you could remember, this kind of thing has been happening earlier before the present day. For example, the issue of Maucauley in Kano. All these are some of the type of issues that the government has at that time, they have the lead and they push it from the onset. But in our own case now, because of political reasons and economic reasons, they always don't face the issue with the right approach.
Okay.
For example, the present governor of Borno State has done a lot, has done 50% of the previous governor have not did. If not because of his action, this bombing will have been more than what we are experiencing now. No, I hope you understand.
I do.
So there's really a political need from both our political elders and the government at large, and even the army themselves. On how many occasions the governor has been found army guilty of lack of seriousness in their issue. At times, you used to even have a case of with them, challenging them for not doing the right thing at the right time. So they always capitalize on the budget that they used to allocate to them and use it for their own selfish purpose instead of using it to sacrifice the life of the nation. So in short, the whole thing behind this is lack of political will.
Okay.
And this is consuming us every day.
Okay.
May God continue to save us. Only God knows where this end up. We will continue like this.
Okay, thank you.
For your program.
Thank you, Idris. Idris, our caller from Katsina did say that it is lack of political will. But yesterday, in reaction to the suicide bomb blast, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, through his spokesperson during Gilale, did say, and I quote, that the attacks, he described the attack as desperate acts of terror and a clear manifestation of the pressure mounted against terrorists and the successes achieved in degrading their capacity to launch offensive. Do you agree with that?
Yes, there's been a lot of degradation of the capacity. That's a fact. And we alluded to this earlier.
Yes.
Years back, it wasn't this way. Right here in Abuja in 2014, we dealt with the issue of the Anya bomb blast. We dealt with the issue of even the Imab Plaza bomb blast. Earlier on, before then, in 2010, December 31st, it was at the barracks here in Abuja. Then in 2011, earlier, the first suicide bomb in Abuja was at the police headquarters.
Yes.
Then later on, in around August of the same 2011, the UN headquarters was bombed, and a lot of fatalities, including local and international citizens here in Abuja. And then came Nyanya then, and even Nyanya after 2 weeks again, there was another bomb. In fact, the Nyanya bomb blast was twice. You had the first bomb blast around 14th of April, you understand? Then after about 2 weeks, there was another bomb blast in Nyanya. Then afterwards, then in 2015, just not long after President Buhari took over power, then there was a bomb blast again, simultaneously with a bomb blast in Kuje. Remember, in 2015, it was a simultaneous bombing.
Yes.
At that point, that was 2015, well coordinated. Yeah. So you could see there. What about other parts of the? Even remember that when the insurgency was at its height, it covered BORNO State, Yobe, and the northern part of Adamawa State.
Yes.
At that point in time, I know the level of the refugees. At the time, we had over 3 million refugees, either IDPs in the country and those outside Nigeria. But you remember, just like the last caller mentioned, the present governor has actually relocated many because of the relative peace that has been restored in BORNO State. The present governor has actually relocated many of the IDPs back to their homes, to return to their to their lands, so that they can farm and then live their normal lives again, which is nobody would have anticipated that 5-6 years ago, or beyond, when this thing was at its height. So there's relative peace in the country. There's the government, the army, the military, and other security agencies. They have done well in degrading the ability of the Boko Haram to strike. So whatever is happening now is, like the president called it an isolated incident, a kind of so we'll be seeing things like this from time to time. But that doesn't mean that the military hasn't done well. They have done well. We must give it to them.
The president also described it as cowardly, and he also did promise that perpetrators will have an encounter with justice. Are you happy when you heard that? Yes,
it's cowardly because whenever you kill innocent people in cold blood, people that are not fighting with you, people that are going about the normal. Imagine somebody waking up in the morning and attending a wedding, and the person is dead, and the people are being buried again. Then right there, within the burial ceremony, there's another bomb blast again within, and the people are also dead. So what will you call that? Cowardly. That's what it is for real. But then on the issue of justice, yes, we know that there's been a lot of efforts made in time past to really get some of these guys to court and then jail them. But I don't know, as we speak today, I don't know how far that has gone. Because I know that there have been some deals. You remember the case of the Madala bomb blast in 2011.
The Madala bomb blast, yes.
December 25th, the Christmas Day bomb blast. Yes. Remember a certain Kabiru
Sokoto.
At the time, we heard that there was a deal that was made. There was a deal that was made that actually led to his release, in lieu of releasing some people. Such kind of deal, a kind of a plea bargain, a kind of deal, a kind of a quid pro quo kind of deal between the government and them. So if you want this like a kind of people who are being held hostage, and you say if you release these particular individuals for us, then we release these hostages. That in that particular deal, that allegedly that Kabiru Sokoto was released. A kind of, we're talking about allegations. We don't know how truthful it is, but the fact remains that on the issue of cowardice, it is. But on the issue of justice, I don't know how far we have gone in getting justice for the people, for the country, and for the victims of insurgency over the past 15 years, or almost 15 years now, if you use 2009, as your starting point. So the fact remains that beyond all we are saying here, the military, the security apparatus of the country, the citizenry, we must be on our toes. It is not time, because it's not time for fatigue now. It is not time for complacency. What happened in Goza on Saturday is a wake-up call for all of us. The fact that these things are not happening, the fact that we believe, as we have been assured by the authorities, that these guys' ability to strike far or to strike at all, their abilities have been degraded. That doesn't mean that they don't have sleeper cells.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they are not doing something. That doesn't mean that they are just sleeping. Because for them, do you know what it took them to really plan, to organize and execute this suicide bombing? And in the process of this, there was no iota of indication to any intelligence agency, both local and international, to warn the Nigerian authority that things like this, because this was a massive operation.
Okay, talking about intelligence, I want you to react to this statement by United States of America through their mission here in the country, where they just say they are offering their deepest condolences to the families and friends of those who lost their lives, and wish full recovery, for the injured. And then they also said these abhorrent attacks are a stark reminder of the ongoing threat posed by terrorism in the region. And in that statement, they also said they are ready to collaborate with Nigerian military to bring this insurgency to an end. Why now? Why have they not, tried to? Because many people believe that if America will really give a helping hand, we will stem the tide of insurgency in the Northeast.
I think at the height of the insurgency, I think we collaborated with the United States, even though Nigeria said as a matter of principle that we're not going to have foreign boots on ground. But we also know that at the time we had to resort to the use of mercenaries, towards the build-up to the 2015 general elections. You remember that at the time the election had to be postponed for 6 weeks, in order to allow for a mop-up operation in the Northeast, to allow for these areas to have elections. So there has been some kind of collaboration. Like I said, it's about battle fatigue. It happens everywhere. When a war lingers for a long time, all the parties will be fatigued. But at the time, based on whatever might be your inspiration, for the insurgents, their inspiration, their motivation is because of a certain ideology that they feel that they are fighting for. Then for the Nigerian authorities, what is their only motivation is to keep the country at peace, to make sure that non-state actors do not at any given time occupy any space of the country. That was because at the time too, there was the controversy whether really, in truth, whether Borno State, as it were, was totally rid of, whether the state had been totally rid of insurgency. There was a controversy how many local governments were under the control, while the government was saying, oh, we've gotten rid of these guys, they don't have any operational base within the state. Some people were saying, no, these guys are still operating, especially around the area of the Lake Chad, in northern Borno. They are still operating there around the Lake Chad area and even along some islands within the Lake Chad area that are still operating. So it was controversial, but whatever it is, I think complacency shouldn't set in at the time like this. We have to continue working hard, the citizens, the army, the internal security, everyone, to make sure that a time will come when this particular evil will be stamped out of our system.
When you listen to security specialists or experts on TV, pontificating on solutions, providing solutions to this insurgency, you will come to the conclusion that it can be a walkover for Nigerian military, but this thing has persisted.
Yes, it cannot be a walkover. It's not a walkover.
With the use of technology?
It's not, even with the use of technology, it's not a walkover. If you look at the background, you're talking about asymmetrical warfare. It's not if it's a regular conventional war where you know where your enemies are camped and your enemies know where you are camped, and you can actually face off at a particular battlefield. Even in conventional warfare, through intelligence, you might be able to understand and know the capacity of your enemy based on the number of soldiers they have, based on the number of equipments they have, and weapons. You know, you're able to know their capabilities through the intelligence. But these guys, there's no way. You don't even know who they are. You don't know where they are camped. You don't know anything about them.
I've asked these questions again.
So it's not that easy. Yes.
We've had a situation where a clergy in this country had unfettered access to bandits. And the military cannot have access to bandits. He interacted with them, you know, had a photo shoot with them. And the military doesn't seem to, to have that kind of access that the clergy had. I'm talking about Gumi.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, I understand. As of that time, people were like, how could this happen? Even governors. If you're talking about, because governors, there was this particular picture that trended at a time where a particular governor was seen in what was supposed to be a peace meeting with a bandit leader, you know, and at the end of the day, nothing came out of it. So sometimes, like the issue of banditry, the issue of banditry, is different from the issue of insurgency.
It is different.
Yeah, the banditry is basically a criminal enterprise.
But they are all security threats.
They are all security threats, but you must classify them within their own different baskets. So many of the bandits are known. Many of them are known. They are known. In fact, in some instances, we had a situation where a particular known bandit was even given a chieftaincy title.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, I do.
And then there had to be some repercussions. But in terms of insurgency, it's a different kettle of fish. It is. You're talking about ideology, which is based on religion. I know religion is something that is emotional. Religion, just like politics, is highly emotional. And so once people are converted and become adherents to certain ideologies that have religious inclination, it's going to be difficult. That's why people fight to the death. When we used to hear about suicide bombing in the Middle East, I never believe that in my lifetime I would live to witness Nigerians being suicide bombers. So you can understand the power of indoctrination, the power of ideology. You understand? In this instance, the first suicide bombing in Abuja here, right inside the police headquarters, I witnessed it from afar. From afar. Earlier in 2011, there was a convoy of a police vehicle. I think what I did was the IG that was coming to work. This guy joined them with a golf vehicle. When the convoy had already passed and entered and gone through the regular police checks within the police headquarters and entered into the police headquarters, the guy came and then passed again with them. I don't know what the excuse he gave. But when he entered the police headquarters, it was unusual. The traffic police that was controlling traffic in front of the police headquarters there, he had actually gone inside to either eat or something. He was not coming out. So he was now instructed to join the vehicle and then direct the guy where he should properly park. And the guy now entered the vehicle, not knowing that was his last. And before you knew it, that bomb went off, killing both the bomber and the police officer and some maybe one or two other persons, and then destroyed it. And it was unprecedented. That day at the Okoro district hospitals, you will see policemen all over the place who were wounded in the blast. You understand? So it's a terrible thing.
Now, suicide bombing based on religious ideology is tied to martyrdom. Is it the job of the military or security agencies to change mindset?
Remember that earlier, even while this was going on at the beginning, there's a lot of people, even the former president, Obasanjo, actually volunteered. In fact, he actually had meetings in trying to find a solution so that they will go to the root of this, which is about ideology. And we also talked about, remember Sheikh Lemu?
Sheikh Lemu.
You remember Sheikh Lemu from Niger? There was a time that they set up a committee to go there to verify at early stage. So efforts were made. It's not as if efforts were not made. Efforts were made, even some clergy people were actually recruited to talk to some of them to try to de-radicalize them. Just talking to them with the language that they understand better. But at the end, did they pay off? No. Did not pay off. So, but however it is, I think when we now went for the full-blown kinetic approach, that it actually paid off to a point as we are witnessing today. But so whatever is happening today, I think we must give it to the military. They have actually fought well, they have done well. A lot of sacrifices have been made. A lot of the finest of the Nigerian army personnel have been sacrificed before, and even in current time, it continues to happen. Even as we speak now, there are Nigerians, there are soldiers who are out there in the wastes of Borno State.
What are those social factors that are fueling this in addition to the factors we itemized?
Poverty. Poverty is one of them. Because if you look at, you have poverty, you have lack of education.
Exactly.
You understand? Unemployment. Then the long neglect of the system by subsequent administration, by past administrations and governments, neglecting the system. And that same problem is still happening as we speak now. That neglect, there hasn't been, that's why today you have a lot of non-state actors who are filling the void that government had left over the years. That's exactly what happened in Borno. But remember, when the Yusufiya group, they had their community within the Borno metropolis, and they continued their activities unchecked, unsupervised, unmolested. They continued over the years, and at that point they were digging deeper, recruiting people. People were being radicalized. You understand? You remember a situation whereby during the first uprising, where even it was alleged that even within the government circle there were some government people, officers who were part of the Yusufiya movement.
Yeah.
At that point. Yeah. You understand? So when we talk about long years of neglect, you see young people today. If you go out there on the street, you see army of young people who are basically doing nothing. Now tell me, in a situation like this, then someone comes with something that sounds alluring, and you see this as another means of livelihood, won't you join them? The worst thing that can happen to an individual is when you wake up in the morning and you don't have any hope of where you're going to have the next meal. Somebody now comes and gives you some kind of hope that there's hope here. Whether it is delusional, whether it is real, whether it is even couched in some kind of in the religious languages or whatever, you join them because you want to survive. And that's how some of these groups get their recruits through this. I'm not saying that everybody who is part of it is, hasn't been educated or something. That's not the point. But majorly, lack of education, poverty, unemployment, they contribute. These are social factors that contribute to the rise and the festering of insurgency in the country.
Over 300,000 fighters, the Boko Haram fighters, have surrendered and they've been de-radicalized and reintegrated into society. I will get to that question after this caller. Hello, good afternoon. This is the POLITY. We have lost that one. They've been reintegrated back to society and they're living within communities. How do you feel about that?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's not everyone who joined Boko Haram or ISWAP that actually joined simply because they believed in the ideologies. Some people were compelled based on some of these social factors that we just mentioned a moment ago.
Yeah.
So some of those people being de-radicalized might actually mean being set free. Because you remember, even currently, that we'll be seeing a lot of them coming out of the bush, surrendering willingly to the military.
Yes.
Because for them, it's been some kind of entrapment. But again, how do we know? What are the processes of vetting these individuals? The criteria to know whether the person was actually maybe not really, wasn't like an original member or a founding member. Whether this person became just a recruit because the person needed to survive or was compelled.
We have a caller, John.
All right.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is the POLITY. Your name, please, and where you're calling from.
My name is Nelson. I'm calling from Jos.
Okay, your name is what?
Nelson. I'm calling from
Nelson
Jos.
from Jos. Go ahead, please, Nelson.
Yeah. Actually, your guest is speaking the truth.
Okay.
And I'm very proud of what he's saying. The truth here is the military are actually trying, but there are still some bad eggs in the military that are actually sabotaging the plans of or the aim of curbing insecurity in Nigeria.
Okay.
You know, the truth here is war is more profitable than peace. While the masses are suffering, some people use this insurgency and banditry to make it their cash cow, and it's actually an albatross to us. So if everybody is going to be sincere in whatever it is they are doing, I don't think we even need up to 6 months to eradicate these people. So all we need to do in the fight against banditry and insurgency is just being honest with ourselves. Just have to be honest in our duty and be very diligent in whatever it is we're doing. So thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Nelson. Nelson calling from Jos is of the view that Boko Haram insurgency is just a cash cow for some people. Do you agree with him?
Well, you know, it's been said why you might use some kind of educated guess, why this matter has been on about people. You know, there's been a lot of allegations based on the budgetary allocations and other extra budgetary allocations that have all gone towards fighting insurgency over the years. You know, it runs into billions of dollars. And so some people will say, if we have spent this amount of money, how come that we are not winning the war? You know, what's going on? Why, you know, why is the war not ending and everything? So there will always be this maybe perception that there are some people out there, maybe, you know, those who are managing the whole thing, who might be helping themselves. But the fact remains that in as much as we don't have proof,
we don't have proof.
So we cannot dive into exactly, yeah.
Good afternoon, you're welcome. This is the POLITY. I can hear you. This is the POLITY. You're welcome to the program. We have lost the caller. We don't have proof, but
in as much as we don't have proof, everything is based on perception.
But John, if you remember, there's this report that made the rounds during the late Abacha regime, where he was credited to have said, if an insurgency or criminality goes beyond 24 hours, the government has a hand in it.
Yes, I've heard that thing, but I was alive and matured, at least, and rational and reasonable, and at least I was of the age of reason under Abacha's time. Yes. I've been trying to remember or to even know whether I can even come at a particular research to know exactly when Abacha made that statement.
Exactly, it's
we have talked about this. I have gone, you know, I have researched to know the circumstances and location.
Where and when said that?
Abacha made that statement. I am here to see. So sometimes when we hear this stuff like this, we just see it as one of those things that happen.
Well, let's talk about psychosocial support. Before that, okay, your caller was coming in. Psychosocial support is support given to help meet the mental, you know, spiritual and emotional needs of, you know, those that have been involved in criminality, so to speak. How impactful would you say from what you have been monitoring?
Yeah, you know, you're talking about the non-kinetic approach to maybe those who are involved either in insurgency or in banditry or in other criminal enterprise around the country. Yes, I think the impact, you know, is not exactly what we want to see. Because whether government has been making efforts, putting out efforts there, yes, they have been putting out efforts to make sure that some of these people who are willing, you know, like we say, some people are involved in this criminal enterprise across board because of some social factors that were mentioned now. So many times they are entrapped in it. So when government comes in to say, just like the issue of amnesty, you know, it's the same thing. When government declared amnesty, you know, during the issue of the Niger Delta militancy, government declared amnesty and said, come out, And many of them started coming out. All of them started coming out. Tompola and the rest of them, they all came out to surrender their weapons. And then government now started the process of trying to de-radicalize them. And then not just doing so, they also try to empower them, education, everything. And as of today, as we speak here, many of the militants are gainfully employed. Some of them are even taking very high net worth professions like pilots, like being pilots. Today they are trained across the world, in South Africa and different parts of the world, because that doesn't mean that you don't see have people who are still left in the creeks. They are still there. And once in a while you hear them coming out to say, we are this, we are that, and we are that, and they will do this and they will do that if this doesn't happen. So the same thing with every aspect of criminality. There are people who may be entrapped because they had no other choice at the time they joined. But when they see government, giving and then extending the olive branch for them to come in, they come out. And it has also happened within the terrorism, the insurgency thing. In places like Bauchi, even in Niger State, there are some centers where the army has set. But what the impact is what we might not be able to verify as it is today, because it is believed that some of them may have totally turned their back to insurgency and then return to normal life. So a lot of people who have been in prison, when people are jailed and in prison to serve time, after serving their time within the prison circle, they will learn a lot of skills, and when they come out, they integrate back to the society and become normal people. While some will continue to be perpetual jailbirds as they are leaving the prison, they are returning. So you must also find there are some people who may have been de-radicalized, who may also find their way back to this people again. You understand? So it is neither here nor there. So
let's talk about the recruitment process. Intelligence reports made available indicate that they have also embraced technology, to recruit members.
Yes, embracing technology here, they use the internet. Yes. They use the World Wide Web quite a lot.
Okay, we have a caller. Good afternoon. This is the Polity.
Good afternoon. This is Mr. Johnson calling from Idu.
Okay, Johnson, you are on.
Yes, I don't want to contribute in regard to this your program.
Okay, go ahead, Johnson.
In fact, the militaries are trying their best.
Okay.
But may I suggest that we should go back to the old day style where the Mopo are well equipped and trained to protect insurgency. In fact, the military are overwhelmed.
Okay.
And I suggest let them go back to the barracks and put themselves of the bad eggs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. He has made a very valid point there. He said the military is overwhelmed, that the police, in fact, the police statutorily is supposed to be in charge of internal security. So he's talking about going back to that era that police used to be well armed to provide services, their own services.
That's true. No, we have always said it, and you remember too that when the tides began to turn in the fight against insurgency in Borno State and Yobe and in Adamawa State, there was this plan then that wherever the army had liberated, that the civil authorities, the police, the civil defense will come and then take over the place, and so that they can restore civil authorities. The army will liberate, but they will leave. Maybe they will just stay within the fringes. But the civil authorities, basically the police and the civil defense and other aspects of civil authority, will come there and establish and then maintain the peace there. But at the time it didn't work, because we know that we don't have enough policemen today to police the country as it were. We don't have enough policemen, and based on that, that is even why that if you see the Nigerian military today, it is actually carrying out police functions. The military today, the Nigerian military has continued to carry out police functions to fill that gap. So you see military even to a point that even controlling traffic in some instances today in the country, mounting roadblocks here and there, even within the towns. which is not supposed to be, because of that shortage in manpower in the police. Today, the Nigerian police, based on figures here and there, could be said to be less than 400,000. Far below the internationally accepted standard of policing, of police per population. One police per population. We are far below that. And unfortunately, the authorities do not seem to understand. If you put in perspective the current wrangling between the Nigerian police authorities and the Police Service Commission, this problem has been there since years back, from the time of Buhari, where they wanted to bring in, because people have talked about one of the solutions to the problem is to bring in, to incorporate what they call the state police. The constabulary thing.
That acrimony should be corrected.
Yes.
And let me ask you, yesterday I saw a video clip of young soldiers from, the Borno, northeast Nigeria. They were jubilating and, with the ambience of excitement around them, because according to the sound bites, they said they are leaving Sambisa Forest, they are leaving the war zone after 4 years. Why should a soldier be jubilated that he's leaving the war zone after 4 years?
I had a friend who served in the U.S. Army, and he served in Iraq at the height of the insurgency in Iraq, around 2005. Now, the regular tour of duty was 6 months standard. We are tour of duty because of the high risk involved in the war. The rate of fatality was just high, suicide bombing everywhere. So every soldier that was sent to serve, we serve for 6 months. After 6 months, you return to base. Then they bring in new persons. Then after, if they have gone down around the full circle, if the war continued, they will now start all over again. You understand? So normally, you don't just, unless the same problem we're talking about that has to do with manpower. So you don't, in a theater of war, like in Borno, where you have a lot of fatality, you have IEDs, planted, roadside bomb, ambush everywhere. Once a soldier has gone there, he has gone fully into harm's way. So at least not more than 6 months, the tour of duty should end, so the person can go and then have some breath of life, if possible, and then let other people come in. That's how it is done. So to leave a particular contingent to serve for 4 long years and they survived.
Fatigue would set in.
Fatigue would set in, and so it calls for celebration. For the fact that they survived after 4 years, it calls for celebration. Because like there's I think when some of the soldiers, unfortunately, in the incident, Kwama in Delta State recently, the defense spokesperson said something. He said that the soldiers, they are the tip of the spear. The spear that we use to kill our enemies, that these soldiers are the tip. And what does it mean? That they are the ones who have been sacrificed, and yet we do not value them. Hence the incident in Kwama. So when you send these gentlemen out there and women out there, you don't have to, it's not, like I gave you an example of Iraq.
Yes.
It was a 6-month tour of duty. And anytime those people left, they were receiving phone calls everywhere. Say, thank God that you have gone out of harm's way. Anytime those, in fact, going to Iraq then was like, just going there and not to return. So after 6 months, when it was getting close to for their tour of duty to end, you understand, they will be so happy, anticipation, that they will go, because they know what it is. They want to return to freedom. They want to go back to their families and be happy again, and return to life. Because going out there in Borno State to fight, insurgency is not it's not a tea party. It's not a stroll in the park. So so 6 months, 7 months, they should be recycled, and the others go. You understand? Then after you've gone around the full circle, you can start all over again. But staying there for 4 years, I think it's not good. Fatigue will come in and every other thing will come in. But we must give it to the military. We must give it to them. They have done well. The Nigerian army, they have done well in terms of degrading the ability of Boko Haram. They have done
what about our security, intelligence community?
Yeah.
How would you assess
their
contribution?
The problem I have with intelligence, like I always continue to say, is that we have to upgrade. Why the human factor of intelligence gathering is fundamental. But at least you can also have tech-aided abilities, which is very, very important. You know, we talk about great intelligence agencies around the world. Talk about the CIA. We talk about the Mossad and the rest of them. You know, why they depend on on the human factor to gather intelligence, they also depend on technology quite a lot.
Okay.
That does not mean that intelligence will not fail from time to time. There will always be some gaps because we're talking about human beings. You understand? So, but the Nigerian intelligence, both the internal intelligence communities and the external ones, the ones who deal with what is happening outside and the ones who are here in the country, I think they have to step up. Especially in the war against insurgency in the Northeast, banditry in the Northwest. Despite the pockets of different types of criminality happening around the country, localized problems here and there within all the zones of the country. But these are the biggest security problems we have in the country today. Insurgency, which we know is localized to a point in the Northeast. We also have the bigger problem of banditry, localized within the Northwest and the North Central. Then we have the problem of the North Central, the Middle Belt, which is the clashes between farmers and herders. Then we have the generic problem of kidnapping, which is in itself has become a very, would I call it a lucrative criminal enterprise because of billions being paid in ransom payments. So everybody all across the country, the issue of kidnapping is not restricted to anywhere in the country. It's a generic problem across the country. It is all over the place. So it's important too that the policymakers, you know, those who make policies regarding to all these things should, you know, put this in perspective, because like they say in security parlance, they say crime is local. Crime is local. So we must understand that crime is local and treat this as they come, according to the circumstances. You know, like if you go to the southeastern part of the country, you're talking about the issue of unknown gunmen. You're talking about agitators. You know, now, these things are mixed. So sometimes in the mix of this confusion, you don't even know that there are also criminal elements who are also hiding under the guise of being agitators and everything and carrying out criminal actions. The same thing with kidnapping. You understand? Then if you go to other parts of the country, you have issues with ritual killing. How come that people are using their human beings? Human beings are being butchered as if they are not human beings because of rituals to make money. It's happening. They have been paraded publicly and we see them. So these are pockets of different types of crimes in the country. And if they continue to fester, you know, the boomerang effect will be affecting everyone in the country all the time. Just like what happened in BORNO on Saturday. You see the way everybody was like shocked. What's going on? And all across the world, it made headlines across the world because of, you're talking about human lives, you know, across. So we should be doing better. Let fatigue, complacency should not set in now, believing that we have achieved it.
Talking about doing better, let's address the issue of drafts. I know that in the US, the draft ranges between the ages of 18 to 21, and in Israel, it's also between the ages of 18 to 21. But in the UK, it's even lower, 17 to 21. Ukraine just tinkered with their own age by reducing it, you know, so that they can meet up with the number of what they're facing with Russia. Why don't we have that kind of setup in this country? But is it expedient for us to even have draft age in this country? We know that after that one, I'm going to ask you about reserve.
You know, drafts, in terms of drafts, you know, normally it comes when you have crisis.
Yes.
When there's war, you know, so, and then the issue of draft comes to play. But I know that in Nigeria here, that I think the recruitment age is from 18 for the military or even police. It's from around 18 years and not more than maybe 24 or more than 23 or 24. Within that bracket, I'm not so sure. But at least I know that the limit that you cannot go below 18 years, because from 18 years you are now deemed to be
we don't
mature.
have draft system.
We don't have that the data to put it here. I'm just guessing based on experience, you understand? But the fact remains that for the police, internal security is fundamental. We need more people.
We need more people.
We need more people. There are lots of people who are going around the country today who are not doing anything, who can actually work as policemen and women in this country. If you go out there, like I mentioned earlier, you see Nigerians. You see a horde, an army of unemployed Nigerians. And these people, anytime you see a crisis, before you know it, you like when there was an incident in Use Market, sometime this year, within seconds, the market was on fire. So you now wonder, how come? How did this happen?
These are idle youths.
How did these people, within this period of time, were able to organize this and then set this market on fire? Use Market. It's happened before our own very eyes. And for days, that market was locked. And you can imagine the number of people who lost whatever they lost in the market. That tells you what? And it happens everywhere in this country. Before you know it, these people are mobilized, and the kind of havoc that will wreak within the system, you'll be so shocked. Why? Because they are not doing anything. But you can recruit them into the police. I know that recruitment, like in the army, is all the time. It goes on almost like on yearly basis across all the three services, all the three arms of the armed services, like the police, the army, the navy, and the air force. And ordinarily, you should have the armed forces of the country, should have enough manpower. Nobody prays for war, but people are always we should be prepared at any time. At any time, prepared for anything. But unfortunately, the military is actually trained for defense. While the police, deals with internal security. But the way it has happened in Nigeria today is now mixed up. The military now also returns now to assist. Ordinarily, it's not as if military will not assist in internal security, but it is not their main prerogative. It is the police. But because of the peculiar circumstances we've seen in the country today, the military now has to come back and then join the police in dealing with internal crisis, and also as well dealing with the issue of insurgency.
Okay. Now, John, as we wind down, let's take a look at the friction that's happening between Nigerian Police Service Commission and the Nigerian Police Force in terms of recruitment. Who do you think has the power? Because recently there was recruitment of about 30,000 Nigerians, young Nigerians, into the police force. That was done by the Police Service Commission, and it didn't go down well with the Inspector General of Police. Who is responsible for the recruitment of police men in Nigeria?
Yes, when this problem began at about 2019 or thereabout under the Buhari administration, it was, I think then the Buhari administration had the plan to recruit over a period of time about 40,000 constabularies, to serve as local police, to help the police, especially in the area of gathering intelligence within our localities. So the very first 10,000 that were recruited, then there was a problem. The problem was whether it was the police management, the IG and his team that had the power to recruit for the police, or whether it was the PSC. The PSC, the police now had the argument that within the lower cadre of the police, that the IG should recruit based on there were laws that were cited and everything, whether the Police Act, even some part of the Constitution. Then the matter festered for a while, then it went to court and ended up at the Supreme Court. Then Supreme Court now ruled that it was the Police Service Commission that had the power to recruit for the police. So it seemed like the matter had ended there. However, with the current acrimony and bickering, the police says that, okay, yes, we know now that you have the power to recruit for us, but we are the ones who carry out the operation. You understand? So we are saying that some of the individuals that you are recruited are not fit to serve in the police force. You see the problem? And the PSC said, no, we did our due diligence, and these people we recruited, they are good to serve in the police. And police say, the police management say, no, they're not good. You recruited people who are like this, who are not fit and everything. So that's the big comment. I heard that the Minister of Police Affairs has actually waded into the matter, because the more they bicker, the more the security problems linger and fester. And the more the citizens die from all these criminal elements. The more people are abducted along the highways, the more people are killed. You know, everywhere in the FCT we have been having this problem. So I think it's good that they sort out this problem once and for all, because it's not even good, for public consumption, that the people who have been given the responsibility to take care of our internal security are bickering among themselves. So where do we now run to? Who do we seek help from?
Okay, let's talk about budget for budget for national security. Has always been the biggest budget. Would you say the budget over the years has been justifiable in terms of curbing, widespread
on paper
insecurity?
On paper, it looks good on paper, because at least using the 2024 budget of both defense and security, which is army and the police basically joined together, I think it's over 3 trillion. You understand? It looks good on paper, but the actual release is the problem. So I was in a conference where a former IG of police actually presented a paper, and he mentioned the amount of money. In fact, he mentioned the amount of money that police needed to run the operations for a year, and the amount of money that the funds that we actually released to the police to run the operation. So you see the disparity is very, very wide. So it is beyond budgetary allocations or budget estimates. It's about the real funds that have been released to these agencies to operate. And then beyond that, the prudency, the frugality, the transparency of the use of these funds. Are these funds actually being used for what they were budgeted for? These are the issues. So yes, we have the issue of the paucity of funds, accepted, agreed. But even when the meager amount is released, how do you use the money? That's the problem. Okay. Because like what we alluded to earlier in the discussion about the perception that money has been spent over the years and we're not seeing anything, the biggest problem is these monies that have been released over the years for the fight against insurgency or internal security, were they used properly in the real thing? That's why we talk about oversight functions of government agencies such as the National Assembly. The National Assembly oversights all these people.
Now let's talk about training for the police. I know that a new cadet in whether we deal in Kano or in Kaduna Police Academy, the first thing you'll be given is a bucket, a cutlass, and a broom. In other advanced countries, the first things you get are books on psychology, physiology, social anthropology, criminology, and what does that tell you about the image of or the product that will eventually graduate from that kind of environment?
It might not be the very best that you expect, and we know what goes on within the police training colleges. You remember under President Jonathan some years back, when he paid an unscheduled visit to the police college in Ikeja.
Yes.
Remember the level of dilapidation and how it was a national shame that year. So I don't know whether there had been an improvement, because I know that I've met a lot of police officers who just left the training colleges, and it was all about complaining about, first of all, they were not fed well to start with. They didn't feed well, they were not given enough food to eat. The issue of allowances and other things. So by the time the person comes out, what are you going to expect from that individual? It's still going to be the same old story of survival. Because if you have to survive through the police colleges, hunger, lack of fund, and almost to the point that it's a hopeless situation. Then when you now come out finally, and now you join the force fully, and you are now sent out there, it is all about survival. And we can see it around the system today. We see it around the system. If you see, because that's why it's important that you spend a huge proportion of the national budget on defense and security. We should see it in the lives of the people. Yeah. One of the poorest people in this country today You talk about the police officers, especially the lower ranks, that are among the poorest people, living in pitiable conditions. I'm talking about pitiable conditions. And they're the ones who do the jobs.
Yeah.
That's why they lobby to be sent to places where they might not do anything, like serving with some VIPs.
Yeah.
Where they will just be comfortable and follow the VIPs and go
companies.
to hotels and then eat enough food and then have some allowances in there. You remember a particular governor that was on video, the governor's wife, that was doling out money to the police orderlies in millions that went viral at the time. So that's what I want to. But you must be able to make sure that if there's anything, if there's anybody that should have the best, after the best, should the police and the military, because they are the ones that make us to go to bed, sleep without that we are sleeping because somebody is awake. The police, the army. So you must treat them well. So when you don't treat them well, and they live in squalor, in hopelessness, then what do you expect? You expect a field day of criminality.
So, any message for the public in terms of looking out for would-be suicide bombers, because we are all vulnerable?
It's going to be difficult to know who is a suicide bomber, but it will be better that the suicide bombers are not allowed to strap these bombs before they go, because once they strap the bomb and they are out there on the streets, it's only God that will help. You understand? So it is what can be done to make sure that they don't even have recruits who will agree to become suicide bombers, and that they don't even strap these bombs around them to come out. Because truly, once these bombs are strapped, like the one that was carrying the baby behind, how would you have thought as a nursing mother, or supposedly nursing mother, would be a suicide bomber? How would you know?
Well, John Okoro, I thank you most profoundly for finding time to join me on the Polity today.
Thank you.
That's the size of our package this afternoon. On behalf of Ruben Okara, our producer, I would like to thank our various callers that called in to make the program conversational. My name is Maucauley Hunohashi saying bye-bye. See you next time.